Hello, and welcome. Welcome to the Fit Over 40 Challenge Show, the number one health and fitness show for those of us in the club. Yes, I'm talking about the 40 and over club. My name is Coach Dave, and I'm going to be your coach and your host today, and I am super excited to bring you this edition of the show. And the title of it is called Fasting or Small Meals for Quicker Results. All right, before we get into that, though, I wanted to really quickly announce some of you guys who have seen already. I have released my book, and it's been doing pretty well. And I actually wanted to go ahead and offer a free copy to anybody who wants one right now. I've got several thousand copies that I can give away. All I'm asking for is shipping and handling to be covered, and I will get one off to you right away. It's in paperback format. If you're interested in one of those, you can just go to fitover40challenge.com, and you look in the menu right there on that homepage. You'll see book, and just click on that. It'll take you right to the order page, and all you gotta do is fill it out, and I will get a copy of my book out to you for free. So just wanted to send that out there real quick before we get started. But let's go ahead without further ado and jump into today's topic. And I've titled it Fasting or Smaller Meals for Quicker Results. Okay, so here's the question. What is the best strategy for fat loss? I mean, I get this all the time, and it's a question that I know people who are ready to take action want to know. And listen, if you were to do a quick search online, if you just put that right there in the Google search, oh my, you are going to get a ton of different stuff that comes up. I mean, listen, I know that there are many different diets. And listen, and there's a lot of my fitness friends and nutrition friends here who would maybe today argue and debate me on what I'm going to talk about and tell me how their approach and what they're doing is the best way. And to be honest with you, I'm going to just be upfront here is I don't think there is a best way or best diet. And this is something that I've evolved into my thought process, because when you start studying the human body, you start studying just the culture of different people and what happens. Everything is different for each and every person. And the way we respond to certain foods and stuff like that is different. However, this is something that I have actually approached in my daily routines. I've now done both, and so I thought what I would go ahead and just present on it today and talk about some of the pros, some of the cons between intermittent fasting and the 6 small meals, fewer and frequent type meals, and just kind of put it out there. Again, it's going to come down to you individually as to what works best for you. But with that being said, I'm just going to go ahead and present it and tell you kind of which strategy I think works best and let you decide which one you should follow. Okay, so let's go ahead and get started. So let's talk about intermittent fasting. Okay, maybe you've heard this before, maybe you haven't. So if you haven't, here's what it is. Okay, it's an eating strategy that cycles between periods of eating and periods of fasting. All right, so ultimately the content of your meals during periods is not a factor. So it doesn't really matter, okay? And so some cycling between eating and fasting each day creates a smaller window for eating and fasting for at least 16 hours, while others cycle eating and fasting across several days. So there's different ways to do this, okay? And it in a sense could take over 48 hours as a time of fasting. So that's just kind of the I guess the definition of what you want to call intermittent fasting. So there's a couple different ways but let's talk about some of the pros here. So humans have been doing this for thousands of years, okay? This is not something new, especially if you are listening to this around, the Holy Week and some different religious period of times. People fast all the time. And see, our bodies are well equipped to handle periods of fasting. If you think about why your body stores fat, that's part of the reason, because in primitive times, there were times where people did not eat for a while, okay? And now as we research this, the research shows that fasting actually produces benefits for disease prevention and metabolic health and weight loss. And even some of the research has shown that it can extend life. It can extend your life. So life extension. Now, some find it less work to fast rather than to plan the small meals. Okay, so that's what, again, we're talking about, comparing this against the 6 small meals, eating frequently. And so that during eating periods, you ultimately, you get to eat whatever you want. So you're not so much concerned about, let's say, the amount of food during that time period. You're more concerned about eating it during that time period, if that makes sense. Okay. All right. So that's kind of the pros there. And that's going against the 6 small meals. The cons is now abstaining from nourishment for long periods of time can be challenging, especially when food is all around you. I mean, again, if you were to say, especially like maybe even on on a weekend, if you're, going out on a Friday night, and let's say you're not eating past 7 o'clock at night, there could be a lot of temptations out there, especially on a Saturday, but even during the week as well. So, that social aspect can be awkward, when you're skipping meals while your friends and family, are eating together. All right. So that's kind of one of the cons there. Also, some find themselves overeating during eating cycles. Okay. And others find the ongoing absence of food to aggravate that food obsession that is going to produce an unbalanced focus on food. So if you kind of have that sense of feeling that, you're a comfort eater and all that stuff, and then when you're not, when you're fasting, you're not able to eat, it might kind of enhance that feeling. So that's kind of some of the cons there, as to, doing the intermittent fasting. I'll tell you, for me personally, it's, I have, kind of, like I said, in the past, evolved into this. So I've always tried to not eat past, say, 7 or 8 o'clock at night. Just tried to stay completely away from snacks, whether I was fasting or not. So that hasn't always been the hardest part, but not eating until, let's say, 11 or 12 o'clock the next day was a challenge for me. But I have seen some results, and I've been doing this as of, I don't know, when did I kind of start doing this? Maybe it's January of this year, starting to do some of that fasting in the morning. And so I've seen some results. So, but that's on the pros and cons for the intermittent fasting. Let's talk about now the 6 small meals. And again, as I've mentioned before, I've done this as well. And this is what I used to always recommend to people. So here's what the strategy, or the definition kind of the strategy is. So this eating strategy of breaking the traditional 3 square meals into 6 smaller meals that are spaced that 2 to 3 hours apart, okay? And it's been used in the past by bodybuilders. Maybe you have seen bodybuilders carry around, containers full of chicken and brown rice, and they're eating, if you've hanging around them long enough, you've seen that they're eating every 2 hours. And so it's been in there, and people who do fitness competitions have been doing this for years, and that's kind of their big, method. That's what you want to call it. So again, the content and the size of each meal is an important factor. So that's where this differs, okay? So the meals in the day contain typically protein, fiber-filled veggies, and a small portion of complex carbs, all right? So while meals later in the day are smaller and do not contain any of that carbs. So again, that's where you've heard people say, I'm trying to eliminate my carbs at night and stuff like that. So that's kind of where that 6 small meals kind of comes from. And that's kind of the strategy behind it if you're unfamiliar with that. And again, the other thing is that all the meals are typically, lower in fat. All right. So what are the pros to that? Now, here's the thing, that I've always talked about, and what I still somewhat believe is that you never feel hungry. If you're constantly eating throughout the day, you should not be hungry. So every 2 to 3 hours, you never get that feeling of depriving yourself that comes with fasting. I mean, there are times when I'm doing the fasting that I hear my stomach growl. I'm like, oh, I'm getting hungry. I start thinking about it. And here's the other thing that's a pro with your energy levels are going to stay steady and high due to the constant supply of calories. You're not going to get those spikes. Now, it also has been shown that fat loss results are steady. And, and when you do exercise with this approach, your lean mass and your muscle mass is going to be maintained. Again, this is kind of why bodybuilders do that. Again, I'm not saying that you can't get lean and still produce a good figure competition by intermittent fast, because that's not true, because I've seen it happen. So, but that has been the typical norm, okay, and the pro behind it. Now, here's the con. You have to plan ahead. You have to be able to every single day, prepare your meals. And, if you don't have the time, it's not the best strategy, okay? So you also have to get used to carrying, I'd say carry a cooler, but you got to be able to put your meal somewhere. I mean, especially if you live in Texas, you can't keep it in your car. So you've got to have, containers filled with chicken and rice and sweet potatoes and whatever else, you decide to put in there, and you have to store it. And, each meal is small. So, you're not supposed to eat the whole thing at once. All right. And so, unless you have that cheat day, you've got to make sure that you keep restraint. And so that can sometimes be a little bit difficult for people. They'll sometimes eat more than they're supposed to during one of those meals. All right. And, there's no room in this diet for empty calories or comfort food. So it's not really there. And so you have to be a little bit more restrictive in terms of what, you're planning on doing with that particular, 6 meals a day diet. So what's the conclusion here, between the two? And the facts prove that both of these, whether you're eating for fat loss, or you're trying to gain lean mass and lose weight, do a fitness show, both work. All right. And there's been several, I guess, I don't know if you want to say real people that I have seen, whether it be through photos or, just working with people who subscribe to both these methods that have gone from, let's say, flabby to lean, and they both work. And I guess the question sometimes is why? How can two methods using totally two opposing strategies produce this, the fat loss results? And, you ask which one is better, and I'm saying, hey, they both work. Well, maybe you're somebody who wants to know a little bit more. So let's just dive in just a little bit deeper, and I'll explain to you kind of why these strategies work ultimately. All right, both of them do. So first of all, meal timing is number one. So when you eat is a factor with both of these eating plans, okay? So this means that subscribers to both plans are required to wait until the appointed time to eat. So mindless snacking or grabbing a muffin just because it's there is totally out of the question if you're going to stick to this routine, okay? And so this reduces overall calories. And if we think about it, that is the key to weight loss. And it explains why both plans produce results. All right? So the second part is meal content. The 6 small meals plan focuses on the content of each of your small meals in great detail. Remember I talked about that? Now, your meals will contain lean proteins. Again, talked about it containing fiber-filled veggies and limited complex carbs. All right, so this detailed control of calorie content is largely why this plan is a sure bet for fat loss not just weight loss. All right. Now, intermittent fasting does not consider the content of your meals during eating periods. Now, I know some people are going to say, well, mine does. Okay, well, that's fine. I'm just giving you the basic general definition of it, all right? The third reason why is meal size. Okay, so the 6 small meals plan also focuses on the exact size of your meals, all right, which makes sense since you are eating 6 times a day and excess calories would quickly add up. So again, that's where, the exact size of your meals plays a factor, okay? So typically this is, done by weight. So, if you were to do this, you would pack your meals for the day. You'd be using a food scale. You're going to have to get a little bit more detailed here in planning. So you have to use a food scale to ensure that you have exactly the right amount of lean protein and complex carbs. Again, how many of us have that much time in our day? But, it's something that if you're going to do this plan, you need to be serious about it. And that's why it works. Now, with intermittent fasting, it doesn't consider the size of your meals during eating periods, okay? So, what is the best strategy for results? Since we talked about why they work, and as we've discussed, both eating strategies above, are capable of producing results. This is due to the fact that both plans result in a lower caloric intake. Let me say that again. Both plans result in a lower caloric intake. So when all said and done, weight loss comes from caloric balance. All right? Again, it comes down to that energy expenditure, caloric balance, how much you're taking in, how much you're putting out. That's what it comes down to. And see, when we eat junk food, ultimately, it's that time period where you're going to get a lot of calories in. So when we do these type of approaches, we're totally getting that stuff out of our diet. We're getting that processed stuff out. And so, essentially, that's the key. Now, if you were to also look at some of the diets, and when I was researching this, I found one in particular, which was called the Twinkie diet. And I know that kind of sounds crazy, but there actually is a diet out there that focuses on just eating Twinkies. Well, Twinkies are only 150 calories. So I don't know how many Twinkies you could eat in a day, and I didn't really look that much into it. But the premise behind it is that, if you only eat, let's say you ate 10 Twinkies, what is that, 1,500 calories? Throughout the you might be in a caloric deficit. So you could lose weight technically. All right. I don't recommend that, but I'm just saying that is a potential reason. All right. Why you could lose it. So just to kind of wrap this up, while both strategies, above that we've talked about, end up curbing your calories, really the only one that I think 6 meals, encourages wholesome calories that are ideal for burning fat and building muscle, which is why this plan is used the most. And this is something that I kind of, subscribe to. But when it comes down to choosing your eating strategy, you need to know what's best for you and your lifestyle. Again, if you can, stay diligent, prepare your meals, eat frequently, you've got the time to do it, you've got the, the regiment, then that might be something you look at, okay? Again, intermittent fasting may also produce better results for you. Try it. See how it goes. The key is to figure out a plan for you ultimately to restrict caloric intake, okay? And something that you realistically can stick with and motivates you. Now, I hope you found some of this to be beneficial for you. If you have any questions, you want to kind of dive a little bit deeper into it, I'd love to. Send me an email and just say, questions about podcasts on intermittent fasting and 6 meals or whatever you want to put in the subject line. I'd be happy to answer your question. If you want to post it in the Facebook group, the allabouthealthandfitness.com Facebook group, go ahead and post in there. Love to have the conversation with everybody about it. Again, here's the key. And when you ask which diet is best, again, I presented these two, but ultimately, there is no particular diet that's going to be best for an individual. It's whatever works for you, whatever motivates you. Again, paleo, Whole30, Zone, Atkins, all of those diets work, and primarily because they get people onto a restrictive plan and they stop the ongoing caloric intake through snacking on junk food and eating whenever they feel like eating and stuff like that. So that's really the key here. And that's kind of what I hope comes out as the big picture. Again, I presented on those two. Those are two that I have done, and I've seen results on both. And to be honest with you, you know, I'll probably go back and forth. I'll probably, again, try something else, because I get kind of bored and tired of the same old thing. So I'll switch it up a little bit. And I'll see results every time I do it, So anyway, with that said, I'm going to go ahead and wrap this up. I hope you enjoyed. If you did, please leave a comment or review. I've gotten some emails in the past that have said, hey, I heard your podcast and it really motivated me, really got me going. I'd love to hear some more. And that just, helps spread the word and gets it out there, and also helps me know that, what I'm presenting on is something that you guys like. So if you would, please leave a review on iTunes or leave a comment. And I'd just love to continue to have your feedback. So with that being said, I'm going to sign off. This is Coach Dave, and make it a great day.